In 1968, Denny McLain won 31 games in a single season. No pitcher has done it since. No pitcher has even come close. He was 24 years old. He had the best arm in baseball, a World Series ring, and 2 Cy Young Awards. He had everything, and then he destroyed it all himself. Not injuries, not age, not a rival who outplayed him. Just Denny McLain, making one reckless decision after another until there was nothing left to lose. Tom McLain had been a good enough high school shortstop to turn professional. He gave it up for marriage, spent the rest of his life driving trucks and teaching electric organ lessons on the side. He pushed Denny hard, organized youth leagues, drove him to games in neighboring towns. He also ruled the house with a volatile temper. Denny and his brother lived in its shadow. When Denny was 15, Tom McLain dropped dead of a heart attack. He was 36 years old. His mother remarried quickly. Without his father's presence, even a frightening one, Denny simply stopped answering to anyone. He channeled everything into baseball. At Mount Carmel High School in Chicago, 38 wins and 7 losses, 3 city championships, signed by the White Sox in June of 1962, then picked off waivers by the Detroit Tigers the following spring for next to nothing. That September, at 19, McLain made his major league debut against his former team. 9 complete innings, 1 earned run, 2 base runners picked off. He also hit a home run, the only one he would ever hit in the big leagues. The question was never whether he was good enough. The question was whether he could stay out of his own way. 1965, 16 wins, an ERA of 2.61. 1966, 20 wins, and an All-Star selection. He was not yet 23. 1968 was something else entirely. Baseball historians call it the year of the pitcher. Bob Gibson of the Cardinals posted an ERA of 1.12, the lowest in the modern era. 13 shutouts. He was untouchable. Gibson still finished second in wins that year, because Denny McLain won 31 games. To understand what that number means, the pitcher who led all of Major League Baseball in innings pitched in 2024 threw 206 innings for the entire season. McLain had already surpassed 200 innings by July. There were 3 months still to play. The pressure was relentless. I had to sit in a clubhouse during the All-Star game, McLain recalled, and everybody in the ballpark, including every player, asked you 3 times, "Are you going to win 30?" On September 14th, Willie Horton delivered the walk-off hit. Dizzy Dean, whose 34-year-old record McLain had just matched, was there in person to shake his hand. McLain told the press, "I always think I'm going to win." 5 days later, he won his 31st. The baseball writers voted unanimously. Cy Young Award, American League MVP, both unanimous. No American League pitcher had ever done both in the same year. Detroit won the World Series that October. McLain remembered the city's reaction. It didn't matter if you were black, white, green, yellow, or pink. Everyone was hugging and kissing. 5 days after win number 30, with the pennant already clinched, McLain decided to do something that had nothing to do with winning a baseball game. Mickey Mantle stepped into the batter's box. Mantle was 36 years old, his body held together by tape and painkillers for a decade. Sitting on 534 career home runs, tied with Jimmy Fox for 3rd all-time, behind only Babe Ruth and Willie Mays, this was his final season. McLain had grown up idolizing Mantle. He called his catcher Jim Price to the mound. Let Mantle know only fastballs are coming. Mantle looked skeptical, fouled a few off. Then he signaled, "Fastball, let her high." McLain delivered it. The Mick put it into the right field seats. Home run 535. The very next batter, Joe Pepitone, stepped up grinning, waving his bat, asking for the same treatment. McLain threw the next pitch over his head. McLain wrote in his memoir, "Mantle was my idol. After an injury and alcohol-filled career, our beloved Mick was an ancient 36 years old and set to retire. When he emerged from the dugout for his last ever at-bat in Detroit, everyone in the ballpark stood and cheered." Mantle told the press afterward, "I'm a big fan of Denny McLain." Commissioner William Eckert sent a formal reprimand. McLain's team called the office. Nothing came of it. His catcher, Bill Freehan, had been watching McLain for years. He put it plainly, "The rules for Denny just don't seem to be the same as for the rest of us." Manager Mayo Smith offered his own read, "You don't deal with a type of personality like Denny's. This is a 24-year-old boy reaching for utopia. When you are living at that altitude, it is almost impossible to imagine the ground. At the peak of his fame, McLain was not just a pitcher, he was a celebrity. Time magazine put him on its cover. He performed with his own quartet in Las Vegas, released 2 albums on Capitol Records, and appeared on The Ed Sullivan Show, with Bob Gibson, his World Series opponent, playing guitar. During the All-Star Game, McLain pitched 2 obligatory innings, walked out of the Astrodome, and caught a flight to Las Vegas to play a nightclub set. His teammates were still in the building. He bought his own airplane and taught himself to fly it. He described his philosophy to Life magazine without hesitation. "My idols are Frank Sinatra and Arnold Palmer. Sinatra doesn't give a damn about anything, and neither do I." On the back cover of his Las Vegas album, he left a personal note. "I hope that the fans will remember me as an outstanding professional musician. That is my real goal in life. Not a baseball player, a musician." For McLain, baseball was always the vehicle, never the destination. Once you see it that way, the discipline the game demands begins to feel negotiable. It did not start with greed. It rarely does. Early in his career, McLain developed a casual interest in betting on horses. Quietly encouraged by one of his first managers, Chuck Dressen, who shared the hobby. Then came a Pepsi endorsement deal and a company representative who liked to gamble as much as McLain did. Both were losing. The logical solution, they decided, was to stop placing bets and start collecting them. In 1967, they became silent partners in a bookmaking operation out of a restaurant in Flint, Michigan. Their partners had connections to organized crime. That September, Detroit was in a 4-team pennant race. McLain pitched poorly, then reported a sudden injury, 2 dislocated toes. His explanation kept changing. Foot fell asleep, raccoons in the garbage, stubbed it on the furniture. The Tigers lost the pennant by a single game. In February of 1970, Sports Illustrated ran the cover story, "Denny McLain and the Mob." A gambler named Edward Vauchen had won $46,000 on a horse race and could not collect from the operation. He enlisted mobster Tony Giacalone. According to the magazine's sources, Giacalone brought his heel down hard on McLain's toes. The timing matched the September injury exactly. McLain denied it for decades, but in his own memoir he wrote, "I was spooked about the ghost of Ed Vauchen. I kept expecting someone to tap me on the shoulder and say, 'Hey, where's my money?' or that my car was going to blow up. Those are not the words of a man who chased raccoons." On April 1, 1970, Commissioner Bowie Kuhn handed down his verdict. McLain suspended until July 1st, nearly half the season. A reporter asked Kuhn to explain the practical difference between attempting to become a bookmaker and actually being one. Kuhn replied, "I think you have to consider the difference is the same as between murder and attempted murder." Teammate Dick McAuliffe put it plainly, "If Denny's innocent, it should be nothing. If he's guilty, then this is not enough." Meanwhile, the lawyer managing McLain's entire annual income had either stolen the money or fled to Japan with it. McLain filed for bankruptcy. Debts, $446,000. Remaining assets, $413. He returned to the mound in July, struggled, then doused sports writers Watson Spolstra and Jim Hawkins with buckets of ice water. 7-day suspension. Then a firearm was found on a team flight. Suspended for the rest of the season. 3 suspensions, 1 year, gambling, ice water, a gun. Detroit traded him to Washington that October. Commissioner Kuhn later called it a foolish gamble by the Senators. Their own manager, Ted Williams, had argued against the deal before it was finalized. He was about to find out exactly why. Ted Williams was not a man who tolerated nonsense. McLain arrived in the spring of 1971 and within weeks had formed the Underminers Club. 4 players quietly dedicated to getting Williams fired. They feuded over rotation schedules all season. McLain finished 10 wins and 22 losses. 3 years after winning 31 games, Washington traded him to Oakland. Manager Dick Williams, no relation to Ted, had little patience for distraction. After 5 starts, a 6.04 ERA, and no visible interest in improvement, Oakland sent McLain to the minor leagues. He was later traded to Atlanta, where he went 3 wins and 5 losses. His final appearance in the big leagues came in September of 1972, ninth inning, tied game, no outs recorded, 3 runs surrendered. The last batter Denny McLain ever faced in the major leagues was Pete Rose, who would later be banned from baseball for gambling. History has a sense of humor. He retired at 29, 3 years after 31 wins. The arm that had seemed built to last forever, discarded before it had any reason to be. After baseball, McLain chased fast money through failed businesses, a second bankruptcy in 1977, loan sharking, and another bookmaking operation. He reportedly flew a wanted fugitive out of the country for over $100,000. He hustled golf. In 1985, convicted under the RICO statute, racketeering, extortion, cocaine trafficking, he was sentenced to 23 years. Standing before the judge, he said, "I've gone through a lot of shame and disgrace. The lessons I've learned have prepared me for the rest of my life." After 29 months, a federal appeals court reversed the conviction on procedural grounds. He went home on probation. A few months later, his daughter Kristen, 26 years old, newly married, was driving home through Michigan in the early hours of the morning when her vehicle struck a steel-hauling truck blocking the road. The car caught fire. Firefighters took 30 minutes to reach her. She did not survive. "After the death of my daughter," McLain said later, "my life was spinning out of control. It took me 10 years to find a little bit of peace." In December of 1996, a second conviction, $2.5 million stolen from the pension fund of a meatpacking company he co-owned. 200 workers lost their jobs. 6 more years in prison. His wife Sharon divorced him during the sentence, then remarried him when he was released. Years later, when Sharon was diagnosed with Parkinson's disease, McLain underwent bariatric surgery and lost 162 pounds. Not for himself, for her. Denny McLain is still alive. He lives in Pinckney, Michigan, not far from Detroit. He writes, he gives interviews, he attends Tigers anniversary events, and signs autographs. When a reporter from ARP asked whether his 2 prison terms were the lowest point of his life, McLain answered without hesitation, "Denny McLain has had 2 tragedies in his life. Our daughter was killed by a drunk driver, and my wife Sharon getting Parkinson's disease. Otherwise, I've had a great life. To worry about the other things that happened many, many years ago doesn't make any sense." McLain is not in the Hall of Fame. He will never be inducted. That door closed decades ago. What is not in question is the record. 31 wins in a single season, untouched for more than 50 years. Willie Horton, who played left field behind McLain and watched every one of those victories, said it simply, "No one will ever win 31 games again. It's impossible." He is right. No one ever will. In the fall of 1968, when the championship plane landed in Detroit, the crowd was so delirious they swarmed the wrong aircraft entirely. McLain laughed about it for years. When he finally got home to Markham, the kids in the neighborhood painted every one of our trees. Every roll of toilet paper they could find in the state of Michigan was in my front yard. A 24-year-old standing in his front yard, at the absolute peak of everything, not yet knowing, or perhaps not yet caring, that the only direction left from there was down.